So we had this really interesting vantage point in every single way of looking at basically a nightmare. So on this terrace, we were watching the flames come out of the building. I tried to call my friends and my mother, find out what's going on, tell them that we were okay. When all of a sudden, over our right-hand shoulder, the second plane came right over us, went right in front of us, turned, and what I would call 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and went into the South Tower.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's another episode of the Difference Makers podcast. And this is a show where we really focus on people making a difference in the lives of others. And it could be something in the way of the environment or people or animals or any number of things. And so I just want to share with you before we get started, when we do an episode, we really want to try to bring to light what individuals and groups are doing to make their lives and eventually all of our lives better. So if this is something that resonates with you, would you please like our channel, follow us, do all those things, hit the notification bell, do all that stuff, because it's through that we know we're hitting a chord with you, that we're making a difference for you. So if you would do that, I would really appreciate it. And this episode I'm really excited about because I get to talk to someone who has been in a position that I was not in. I remember living through this circumstance of 9/11 very clearly. I remember where I was. I remember everything about it. And the person that we get to have, we're so fortunate to have as a guest today, her name is Christina Stanton. She's an author, she's a speaker. But the thing that really resonates in my heart about what she's been through is she lived 6 blocks away and was there when the towers came down. And not only that, she's been a New York City tour guide for 30 years. And her efforts today continue now to be with tour guides. She's also a journalist and writes all kinds of cool articles. But the thing is, she still wants to keep the memory of 9/11 alive, keep the legacy, and help us always remember and be appreciative, and also to never forget what that day was about. So, Christina, I started this with a bunch of time that I want to give to you, but I just want to tell you thank you so much for carrying on the legacy of all those souls and for that really, really crazy part of our history.
Well, thanks for having me.
I want to start out with just going into kind of some of the fun stuff, the lighter stuff. So you were started out in theater and you were from Florida. You come to New York. Was that to do theater? And did theater kind of lend itself towards becoming a tour guide? Or how did that transformation take place?
Yes, I moved here to New York City from Florida in 1993 at age 23 to try my luck on the Broadway stage, see if there was a place for me on it, if I was even good enough for it. But actually, I really wanted a lot of fun. I wanted just to do something different, kind of like a version of backpacking across Europe when you graduate from college. So I moved to New York City. And yes, I moved here to be an actress, and I began auditioning right away and getting involved in the culture here and the subculture of actors, performers. But this is an expensive city. So you need to have a good side hustle to be able to make it. And I was coming up with all kind of side hustles that weren't working for me, and I finally found one in becoming a licensed New York City tour guide. And I became a tour guide in 1995.
Wow. And so when you started doing that, by the way, did you continue working on the theater career? And were you a singer, dancer, actor, was it the whole spiel?
I was not a triple threat, though I really wished I really wanted to be. I had two left feet. No, I am an actor, actress, singer, and I did that for a good 10 years. I performed all
Wow.
over the world. I had so much fun. I was performed on a cruise ship. I was a member of the New York Gilbert and Sullivan Company for about 6 years, and we did all of our shows on Broadway and off Broadway. And it was several different things, but I had so much fun. I'm so glad that brought me to the city because I feel like there's no people lovelier than those that are in the arts, and those are my people. That's my tribe, and they welcomed me thoroughly as they do everyone. It's such a welcoming environment, and I had the time of my life. And
Oh,
guiding I did as well.
And how did you get to be a licensed tour guide then? So you need this side hustle. You start doing, did you love the city and the touring and you were attracted to the heartbeat and the pulse of it? So you're like, I want to learn more? Or were you just going, I need a side hustle here. This is open. I guess I'll just learn about the city.
I did love the city right off the bat. It was just so different from Tallahassee, where I was from, born and raised. And I wanted to get into the pulse of the city. I wanted to learn more about my surroundings and my new environment. But I'll be honest with you, that was not the reason why I became a New York City tour guide. I just needed money. And there was an
But
actor that I did a show with on Long Island who was a tour guide, and he told me all about it. And primarily that you have to take a test to be able to be a tour guide. And so that was followed by essentially a year-long studying for this test because it was really difficult and I barely passed, to tell you the truth. So but yes, I did pass August 15th in 1995. So you know what that means, that this year is my 30th anniversary of being a licensed New York City tour guide, which is, I'd like to think that I would pass the test easily now, but you never know.
so good. And so as a tour guide, when you were taking people through that process, I'm sure that you have a mission almost to help them feel that love and that connection to the city that you have, that you've built over this so many years now. When you're going through that process and you're sharing with people about these skyscrapers and the stories, are you telling stories of the people that helped build the city as well as the places that you're finding? What's a great tour of New York City consist of?
That's such a great question. Really, I'm kind of old school about it. I believe that tour guides are ambassadors to the city. And if you're thinking of the term ambassador, you're thinking of welcoming somebody, of making them feel accepted and trying to form a bridge into their understanding of this environment. And I take that very seriously. I love everything that you said, showing them the attractions and what makes New York very unique and special. But I really want people to feel that it is a welcoming city and believe it or not, a loving city. And it really is. I've always felt very accepted and loved and in the city. I feel very engaged with it. And I want others, I want tourists to feel the same way. That is my goal.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you're really great at your job. I've never been to New York City, but I would love for you to give me a tour when I'm there and help me get that connection with the city that you have. And
I would
as we
love.
kind of transition, here's where it gets a little bit interesting for me. So you're doing tours, a good amount of time before 9/11 happens. Can you walk me through, from your perspective, what happened in 9/11? I know you've written a book about it, and I want you to make sure that you share what that book is in case people want to get it and read it. But from just this heart to heart, you and me connection, and to the audience that is either watching us or listening, walk us through that day and those moments, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, well, so I gave tours of the 9/11 of the World Trade Center complex. So I was very familiar with it. And my husband and I moved to that neighborhood where the complex is located only 2 months before the attacks happened. So we were still getting settled into our home. And I was still asleep the morning of September the 11th in 2001 when my husband came and shook me awake and said that something horrible had happened. Whatever had happened had shaken our building, and that there are flames coming out of either side of the North Tower. So we had this really interesting apartment building that we had just moved into, like I said. It was on the 24th floor and it faced the Twin Towers. So it faced north. We were just south of it, 6 blocks south. So when we rushed, and it had a fabulous 300 square foot terrace. So we had this really interesting vantage point in every single way of looking at like basically a nightmare that was like a bad movie. So on this terrace, we were watching the flames come out of the building. I tried to call my friends and my mother, find out what's going on, tell them that we were okay. When all of a sudden, over our right-hand shoulder, the second plane came right over us, went right in front of us, turned in what I would call 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, and went into the South Tower. So the impact of that was so strong. and we were so close to it. I mean, gotta understand that second plane flew in about 500 feet above us. Um,
Wow.
and it flew into floors roughly 78 to 86. And if we're on the 24th floor, that's just super close. So that started a whole odyssey for us. We evacuated our building. We grabbed our dog. As soon as we uh, left the stairwell of our building, I realized that I was still in my pajamas with no shoes. So we tried to get back into the building so I could get dressed and we could kind of like collect our things and collect our my ID. But even in that amount of time, our building wouldn't let us in using the elevators for evacuation only. So we found ourselves in Battery Park. So that is a lot of people know Battery Park because that's where people go to get the Statue of Liberty ferry. That's the docking area. And that park was as far away as we could get from the destruction north of us. So once we hit the park and we got the park, we felt relatively safe. A couple of hundred of us in this park. But it turns out we weren't safe at all. That when the buildings came down, they covered us with dust and debris. There was smoke everywhere. We couldn't breathe. And also, we were very worried that these buildings were going to fall on us. And so it was just a horrible, just kind of a near death experience where essentially my husband and I told each other goodbye. We didn't think that we would live through this. We'd only been married a year and a half. I was 31, he was 34. We were newlyweds and thought that the whole world was our oyster, and we were ready to take on Manhattan in a new way as a married couple. And just then we thought that our lives were going to be over. And
If I could stop there
yeah,
for just one
yeah,
second,
it's a lot
I
to process, I know.
yeah, and I don't know. I remember one time being in a situation where I thought I could die. I was coming out of a fishing trip and I was on these cliffs hiking out and I had gotten to a point where I couldn't go any farther and I was by myself and I thought I could die right here if I can't make it back. I can't go any farther. And I know what I felt in that moment and it was very uneasy. And so I've never talked to someone who was in that situation in the context of the towers and thinking that they could literally collapse to the side and could crush you guys. I know that you guys are faith-based folks. And was that time, what was it for you guys? You're newly married, you're just young couple, you're ready to take on the world in Manhattan, as you said. Was there a lot of fear going on? Was there in your mind and around you? I can't imagine the other 200 people weren't a little bit freaked out too. Can you just share with us the emotion of what that was about?
And it's funny you should say that because even then and now, I still have a hard time processing emotions from that because there was something about me that kind of turned off that day, tuned out and
Mm.
turned off. It was just a matter of surviving that day. So to do that for me, I definitely had to dial down the emotions of it. So, but what I remember mostly is everybody who their reactions around me. And I write about this in my book about how in this battery park, it's a 25-acre park by the New York Harbor, and it's surrounded by water. Got the Hudson, the East River, and the harbor. And so we were very much trapped like rats down there in this park with nowhere to go and not able to breathe. And watching people in an extreme case of chaos and literally like scratching to try to breathe and running around to nowhere. There was nowhere to go. It was devastating to be surrounded by in that manner of just having a couple of hundred people think that they were going to die right around you. And
Mm.
I was really upset to watch them. It's horrible to watch people in that case, that extreme case of duress. And I go into more about again that in the book. For me, if I felt anything, if I felt kind of anger that it was about to all be over. I was so excited about my future. I was excited about this new husband. I was excited about our new dog. I was excited about our new apartment with this killer, cool 300 square foot private terrace. I felt like I was on the top of the world and it was all about to end. And I thought, all I kept thinking was, all that for that? I had all these dreams and plans and ambitions. And it just all seemed like it was being stolen away from me.
Wow. And with that perspective, what were the lessons that you took away that helped you, maybe on two fronts? On the emotional side, you had to figure out really quick how to deal with pain and loss and confusion, like as a couple and individually. But then on the getting on with your life side, when it didn't happen, when it wasn't all taken away, what were the lessons that you learned from that or that you use today as you go about living your life and trying to make the most of what could have been a horrible situation? Now you've been given this gift of hopefully decades longer. Can you share any key insights from that?
You know what really helped? Because for us, 9/11 did go on, and we did suffer from PTSD. My husband found out one of his good friends had died in the North Tower. Our dog almost died from he did end up dying from 9/11 causes. And it did go on and on and on. But what was helpful during that time and in the aftermath were people who came to help us or people who showed kindness. I remember that to this day. I wrote an article that is so dear to me because we were taken away from Manhattan by a boat. You might have heard about the boat evacuation of 9/11. It's a wonderful hero story. 500,000 people were rescued from from the lower Manhattan, from the attacks and continuing danger. But boats mobilized, took us off Manhattan and dropped us off all over the place. My husband and I were two people who are part of it, and we were dropped off in New Jersey. Well, we were dropped off kind of in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we were
And
just,
did you have money? Like you didn't have time. You
I'm
didn't
in
have
my
shoes.
pajamas.
Yeah. So did your husband have his wallet? Did you have
Thankfully, he did
anything?
have his wallet. Thankfully, he did. But we right away. This is the craziest story, but I needed to use the bathroom, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't even know where we were, and we were covered with dust. We were just a big mess. Some random person, literally invited us into their private home and let us use the restroom and gave us water. And Newport Pavonia, I think it's called. We were people were asking how we were. I got a million phone calls. How are you doing? There was a lot of kindnesses in New Jersey from that day of people who knew we had all just kind of been through hell and who offered all kind of things. Like our cell phones weren't working because the cell service had gone down from 9/11. So I would ask people in New Jersey, can I borrow your phone? I got to tell my mother that we're okay. We've got to tell my husband's mother we're okay. People just came out of the woodwork to be kind and to help. And that was consistent in the months after as well by other people just offering help and assistance. One of the reasons why we became people of faith is a church reached out to us and helped us as well. And in the aftermath of financial help, we ended up going to that church and forming this wonderful community. But I think along the way, everything that stands out was the kindness. And it started with the kindnesses of those boat operators who weren't getting paid. They came and helped us all get off that island to safety. Some of them are my friends to this day. That was an act of kindness, and I know that their rescue and recovery missions. But it the kindnesses added up, and it started with that boat evacuation. And it continued on, and that's what I remember.
Wow. And so now, as you give a tour and you're taking someone through New York and you're telling them all about the amazing place that that city is, all of its founders, the things that you're going through, when you get to the Twin Towers, what do you say?
So I do particular tours of the 9/11 memorial. I'm one of a handful of guides still in the industry who gave tours before. I took thousands of tourists to the original World Trade Center Observatory, and now I take them through the 9/11 memorial. There's only a few of us left who can do that. And that is what I like to impart to people is the kindness. 9/11 produced an amazing amount of heroes. There's a lot of stories about the man in the red bandana, the firefighter who ran through a long tunnel, who tried to help. There's stories of people who aren't rescue workers, of an elevator operator in Soho who has no connection with the Twin Towers, who ran down to the Twin Towers and tried to reactivate the downed elevator system, and he died doing it. That is,
Mm.
there's civilians, there was rescue workers, there's policemen, there was firefighters. That's what I like people to know about 9/11 is people's giving spirit. And New Yorkers are like that. New Yorkers are tough, but they watch out for each other. And I saw it on display that day, and I've seen it ever since.
Yes, I would agree. And I remember, so I will give you perspective that you couldn't have had because you were in it. You were at ground zero. I remember outside of that being here in Colorado. So by training, I'm a chiropractor, right? And at that time I had practices that I was working in and this and that. And I remember the day and going to work and being part of that and just literally thinking there are people who are suffering, not only there, but that wave of grief of what happened, it spread way past Colorado, right? I mean, it spread past our borders, but it hit us hard. And so as I was working through my patient load that day and in the weeks and months to follow, I remember saying so many times, like, look, guys, if you need help because of this, please get help. But on the other side, if you can give help, if you can be the rock for someone, if you can be strong, be that, because there's going to come a time where we're going to need strength. Something's going to happen around here. We're going to need that kind of support. So if you have the ability to be strong, be strong. And I had never seen in my life up to that point, I don't know that I've seen it since, the country come together for a sense of, um, you know, patriotism is probably maybe the political word for it, but a sense of we got each other. We gotta now watch our backs. And unfortunately, it's at the cost of now a common enemy that we have to go get. But the chance for us to heal together was something that I will never forget. And yeah, I wasn't as close. I wasn't at ground zero, but again, the ripple effect of that day, it still lingers in my mind as one of the principles that I learned and I took away from that was when I'm in a good place, I need to be strong for others because there's going to come a time when I'm not in a good place and I'm going to need some strength for myself. So I just want to share that perspective from, thousands of miles away.
And I think it was Mr. Rogers who said, when you're going through something, look for the helpers. There's always going to be helpers. And I've seen that play out again and again. And yes, for sure, that has inspired me to be a helper as well. And I would say that a lot of our roads, my husband and I, that things that we're involved with to this day have our roads hooked into 9/11. Everything that makes up our life today really has their roots in 9/11.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about that because I know from just visiting with you and things, some of the things that you've done since that, and what I wasn't aware of is it was a result of 9/11 that it seems to me that you and your husband came to find faith-based life and be really involved with your church and that kind of thing. It looks like you got involved in not only a missions group to help send people to other countries to do good work, but also with a nonprofit to help with marginalized people to help them get resources they need. And what I'm hearing you say now is that's a direct result of the kindness you received, and now you're kind of paying it forward. Can you talk a little bit about the connection there?
And that is kind of a buzzword, pay it forward. But certainly there is something to say about that because I feel like a lot of what we're involved in is a paying it forward reality. However, when it comes to faith, um, we are also in a position of gratitude, feeling that God, who is sovereign, is cares about all of us, and that literally is all of us. Our neighbor is everybody, not just our family or our immediate community. It's everybody, and that we're here to help everybody and to form a bridge over, because we all go through hard times. Every single one of us doesn't have to be on the level of 9/11, but I feel like what we're supposed to do is, especially through my faith, is to be there when somebody goes through their time. and that we're just there to kind of help each other through this this crazy life. And yeah, so we do have a nonprofit that helps vulnerable families. I know I have a particular passion for homeless. My husband, his expression of how he helps others is for his fraternity brother who died. He was working for the company Cantor Fitzgerald, and that was the company that lost the most people in 9/11. I think it was 658. He is an organizer for an annual fundraising event at Clemson, where he graduated from, and how he knows this fraternity brother, that raises scholarship funds for incoming freshmen. So that is his expression. He spends all year on that. It's a big deal, and he's proud of it, as he should be. And I have yes, the nonprofit that we do together, but I also feel that way very much so as a tour guide giving tours of 9/11. I'm able to share our experience of that day, but I'm able to tell them some of these heroism stories. And that, in my estimation, I believe that especially students, especially those in high school, it's a reminder that in their young life and they're moving forward, they're going to have hard times, and that we all are, and that we are there to help each other up and lift each other up. And so then a helper will be there for us when it's our time, to look for others for support and for encouragement. And so I'm just so glad I have that opportunity. I look at it as golden. And certainly I never would have thought that these were the kind of tours I would be doing when I first started when I became a tour guide in 1995. If you had told me what kind of career I would have, I don't know what I would have done with that information. But I feel very much that makes a difference, is the tours I give of 9/11.
That is so impressive. And you know, the thing that I've taken away from our talk so far today is the importance of being kind and looking to help someone else, because in that moment we were all reacting to try to do whatever we could, and by having a clear mind and an open heart, it'll be shown what you can do, right? Just do what you can. You don't have to be a specialist in any kind of way. Just have an open heart and some open hands and an open mind, and you're going to be able to serve. And so that is, I've taken that from our conversation as a very, very stark reminder for me to look where I can help today. You know, look where I can help. And it just reminds me, all the things that you've shared, Christina, today remind me of a spiritual principle that someone shared with me once, that says, you know what, basically, while we're all here, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Imagine that,
Love it.
because
I love it.
in that tower, in that moment, it wasn't just Christians, it wasn't just Americans in that sense, right? There was a whole bunch of faiths, there was a whole bunch of philosophies, there was a whole bunch of nationalities, all those people affected, and those are directly of all those thousands of people that perished. But then there's all the tens or hundreds of thousands of people that were directly impacted and affected. And at the end of the day, we're still all walking each other home. No one was worried about segregation of any kind during that moment, right? It was like, you need help. I'm not even going to ask your name or what you think about. I'm just going to do something for you. And to me, man, you have brought that to light today. Like, even in your mission trips and the things that you're doing it for people as we're all walking each other home. And I just think that's the coolest thing.
And I want to mention that one of my best friends is a Muslim, and we have compared our religion talking to each other. And when I was telling her our definition, a Christian definition of neighbor is literally everybody. And she says that so is Islam. And I love that we share that I know that she's from she's from Syria. And I loved the idea of, like, gosh, I'd love to imagine that I'm in Syria. I'm traveling. Sounds like a wonderful country. I'd love to go there, where she's from. And I'd love to think, if I got into any trouble, that there are people that I could go to for help. And she, in the opposite way. It goes beyond any kind of religious uh, demarcations. That kindness is something that we can give to each other. and it's free, and it's and we all need it. I look at it as passing the baton too. I was shown a kindness. I want to show it to others. We're just kind of passing that baton over. Like, I went through this hard time. Let me help you through yours. And you're right, just walking each other home. That's really all we're doing.
And when you do a tour, especially for the kids, is that do they get it? Like because they are so far removed, they weren't alive when it happened. I would think it would be so awesome if when they left, the one thing they left with was the besides the mark that impression and the depth and the scar it left on our country and the people that were involved, the kindness and the connection. Are you able to, do you think, communicate that to them where they then leave with, you know what? It is about kindness. It is about that. Because I can hear it so much through you. Do you see the impact? Does anyone ever kind of reach back out and say, man, that really helped me change the course of how I was thinking or something that I might do in their lives?
So all the time, and there's a couple of things I feel like helps. For one thing, when I give tours of the 9/11 Memorial, I'm able to show them this is where I was living. It's right there. You can see it. So, and also, I bring pictures. And so I have a picture of my husband and I on our terrace. We only took one picture of us on our terrace with the Twin Towers in the background. We hadn't lived there long enough. We'd just taken that one where it's a precious picture. But I think through the visuals of seeing, the pictures, here it is. But also, I'm vulnerable. I get vulnerable with them, and I think just in general, people respond to that. I oftentimes, even though it's almost 25 years later, or it's 24 this year, 25 coming up next year, but I oftentimes cry when I'm talking to them. I don't love crying, but it's I definitely have no guards up. It's not, I never talk like it's rote, like I'm on a script. I'm just vulnerable, talking to them like a normal person that I am. And I think all of that kind of comes together, and it really does seem to create an impact. Oftentimes I hear a student say, gosh, I heard about this in school, but I never met somebody. And also uh some of the stories I tell them about the hero stories that a lot of times that they only get a very small slice in school of what 9/11 consisted of. I'm just glad that I can round out that information for them.
That is beautiful. You are truly a treasure in what we do. I think to whether you're talking about us as Americans, people of faith, or as just a human being, hearing what you've learned and how you've grown from this is something that, again, I know it's impacted me and our viewers and listeners as well. If I were to ask you one piece of advice or one piece of or something you've learned, and it might have been through this, it might have been through something else that still helps guide you as a pillar along your life's journey, what would that be? And would you be willing to share it with us?
Gosh, oftentimes I look at situations and think, but for the grace of God go I. I mean, I mean, how I ended up, let's say, being born in America, or into my family. There's so many circumstances I had no control in. That was just what I was born into. What luck might have given me. I mean, there's a million things that make up my life that I'm very grateful for, but it could have gone in a lot of different directions. And so I feel like when it comes to other people and their experiences, and um, how they were born, how they were raised, it's just by the grace of God that I would be in my position, rather than in another one. And I just feel like we're all on kind of a level playing field. A lot of stuff it was out of our control, and it was just by the luck of the draw of what makes our lives, that I just feel like compassion is just needed, because things could have turned out really different. Things that for on the day of 9/11 could have turned out very differently for my husband and I. He had been offered a job in the Twin Towers. I temped there, when I was an actress. I was also a temp. That was another side hustle. I mean, it just there was a lot of interns and temps who died that day. I mean,
Mm.
it's just remembering that we don't have the corner of, oh, I'm this blessed person. No, we're just by the grace of God have made it through, and we just need to be there for others because things could be, there's so much out of our control. But that, and what I say about the Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. There's always people helping. Don't let things get you down too bad where you're not going to throw out that lifeline, and we all need that lifeline.
I love that. Christina, this has been such a great, just a great time of thank you for investing it in me and in us. If people want to learn more about you, the mission that you're a part of, the things that you're doing, check out your books, how would they get a hold of you?
So my website is ChristinaRayStanton.com. And if you're on Facebook, I'm old school. I guess that's old school on Facebook. I'm Christina Ray Stanton author, and that's where I post what's going on. But I love to keep up with people. And if anybody's ever in New York, come on and take a tour with me of 9/11.
And how do they do that? Do they book a
One of your
tour?
viewers, listeners, I'll do it for free. This is
Whoa, I might be coming down.
yeah,
Do they book
seriously.
that through you directly, Christina, or is that through a company, or how do they
No, just
connect with
me.
you?
Just
Okay.
me.
Okay. Cool. Well,
Happy to do that.
this has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking part of your day to be with us. And so, for those of you listening and watching, I hope this moved your heart and moved your action meter to go be kind and do something and be a helper like it did me today. And in the meantime, again, if this meant something to you, share it with someone who might be able to benefit from that as well. And for Christina, for our audience, from us here at Ramos Law, all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you, and keep making a difference.